Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of the DCS series AH-64D Apache, and this is going to be more tips for noobs. And today we're going to talk about using the chain gun from the pilot seat in its simplest form so you can get up and just start experiencing some of the combat aspects of the Apache. So stick around. Alright guys, so as I said, just like I did in yesterday's video about getting comfortable and flying the aircraft, this is not meant as a tutorial. This is meant as a resource for those of you who are like myself, who's been waiting for the Apache and want to get up and start shooting some guns, shooting some missiles and things, and really just start enjoying the use of the Apache. Full-blown tutorials that are accurate and to the T will be available later on, but for today, it's just about showing you guys some tips and tricks from another noob, and hopefully getting you guys up and releasing some ordnance. So today we are talking about the chain gun. So the first thing I'm going to do is we're going to walk through some controls that you're going to need. There aren't many for today, as long as you have yesterday's mapped. The other thing I'm going to give you guys a real quick tip when it comes to the controls. One of the things that I do every time a DCS module comes out or I buy one is I go through all the documentation. I look at everything and I map all of my controls at once. And honestly, what I'm finding is that just makes it even more stressful. Now, yesterday I mapped everything that I needed just to fly the aircraft, and then the more I was flying it around, getting comfortable with it, today I actually remapped some of those, moved things around to different buttons and getting more comfortable with it. I recommend you guys do the same thing. Bring yourself slowly into it and then adjust your control scheme as you figure out what you're using more or less. Now, all of this series will be, or all of today's episode will be everything from the pilot seat, okay? We're not going to jump into the front seat, the CPG seat. We're just doing everything from the pilot side. Okay, now first thing that you're going to definitely want to have is this cue, now I put this keybind here. If you guys touch on that real quick, if you guys run through any of these that I'm showing here and you don't have anything assigned to it, that means that I assigned it to it. Okay, and the reason why I assign a keyboard command is because I use a third-party software called RS Mapper to map all my controls, because it offers a bit more functionality than what comes natively with DCS World. Okay, so if you see any of these and you don't have a keyboard command there, that's why. All right, so first off, the AS push button. Think of this as it's the arm safe push button. Think of it as your master arm. Now, the reason why I recommend mapping this to something, and map it to something that you don't use very often, but you have access to. And the reason being is because while you have weight on wheels, so basically while you're on the ground, you cannot arm the master arm. So it has to be either a button that you have to be either willing to grab the mouse and push the button while you're flying, or, it's real nice just to have a quick switch. You flip it up, boom, you're ready to roll. All right, so that's the first one. The next thing that you're going to need are these guys here. All right, the weapon action switch. Think of these as nothing more than weapon select. Okay, R is for rockets, M is for your Hellfire missiles, and G is for the gun. I'm not sure what the A is for yet. That must be something coming down the road. And then finally, what you're going to need is this keyboard command here, or weapons trigger guard. Now, watching one of Cosmo's videos, and by the way, I will make sure to put a link to his YouTube channel down in the description below, because he is not only the voice of George, as I found out today, but he is also, I believe, a former Apache, either pilot or gunner. I'm not sure what his position was, but he is extremely familiar with the Apache. Either way. So what he had said in his video is that the trigger guard, which is nothing more than a flap that's down in front of the trigger, actually they're trying to get ED to remove this completely, because what it is in reality, it's like a spring-loaded cover that you sort of shove your finger up underneath and then depress the trigger. However, for our sake, I do recommend triggering this when you first start the aircraft. Lift that guard up, because what will happen is you're going to find yourself, your weapons are armed, the master arm is set to arm, you've got your sight on target, the weapon's selected, and you go to squeeze the trigger and nothing's going to happen. And what it likely is the trigger guard is still down. Okay, and then obviously you need spacebar or your trigger mapped on your HOTAS to actually release the rounds. But that's pretty much all that we're going to worry about for today. It's pretty simple to use the gun, it really is, and it's a ton of fun. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, the next thing I want you guys to be aware of, we're going to come down here to the PFD here, And we're going to go to the menu button, select weapon, and you guys want to watch for this guy right here. By manual range, it sets the range of the gun. And the reason why that's important to think about is because the gun will try to release the rounds to that range, not necessarily to the target. So for example, if you have a target that is only 1,000 meters away, but you have this set to 1,500 meters, which is the default for the pilot seat, the gun is going to try to loft the rounds to 1,500 meters. So what you're going to find is that your rounds are going to be going past your target, and then vice versa. You know, if they are beyond 1,500 meters, the rounds are going to fall short if they're in the center of your crosshair. Now, you can compensate, you know, by obviously moving your head up and down and changing the target, and we'll take a look at that later. But another really easy way to do this is to simply set it to auto mode, which I'll be demonstrating later. So let's go ahead and set this. We're going to set this to 1,000 meters for now. And the thing to know, if you set an actual range, if you're not using auto mode and you set a range, 800 meters, 600 meters, 1,000, whatever you set it to, and you switch to a different weapon, that range will still remain. However, if you're in auto mode, and again, we'll talk about this again later, but if you're in auto mode and you switch to a different weapon and then back to the gun, you will no longer be in manual range or in automatic range. It will switch back to whatever you have programmed here. So keep that in mind. And again, we'll talk about that here in a minute. But other than that, that's all we need for the moment. So let's go ahead and get our little lady running here. I'm going to go ahead and turn the controls on for you guys. Please keep in mind, let's see here, let's cycle this out. There we go. The center white diamond here is the cyclic. The lever over here is the collective. The bottom diamond is my anti-torque pedals, and the red X's are the current trim settings. So every time you see one of those red X's move, that's what I've set the trim to, because you're going to see that I trim quite often. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Easy, baby. Easy, baby. Come forward. We have a building. We have a building. Come on. That was a terrible takeoff. Terrible lift. Come on, darling. Come on, darling. There you go. Turn it. Turn it. And once we start getting some forward momentum, we'll get more authority back. Need a lot of anti-torque pedal at low speed. But once you get moving, it's not so bad anymore. All right. Now that we're airborne, I'm going to hit that master arm switch. There we go. And the gun is now selected using that G key that I bound. And you can know right away that the gun is selected by seeing your round count here. We have 300 rounds left. Now notice we have an M here with the 1,000. Okay, that's 1,000 meters or 1 kilometer away, and that's what we set down here. But now, to use it in its simplest form, to make our lives easy and just have fun, we're going to select that, go back to the keyboard unit, hit A, and enter. And now we're notice that the IHADS display has changed to an A, and everywhere we look, we're now getting ranging information. If you see the AZ limit, like you see here, that's the azimuth limit, and the crosshairs are flashing. That means the gun cannot reach to wherever you're looking. Anytime you see the crosshairs flashing, the gun is unable to reach whatever you're looking at. Okay? But now, as I was saying before, if we had other weapons on board, and for example, if I disable the gun, I don't know for sure if it works if I disable it. Let's come. Yep, there we go. I turned the gun off, came back on. Notice it switched back into manual mode. So again, we're going to have to come back and hit A and enter. So keep that in mind. If you're using the gun in auto mode and you switch weapons or turn the gun off and back on, you're going to have to reset it in auto mode in order to use it in the auto mode. The other thing that I wanted to make sure to point out that I really liked that Cosmo said in his video is the purpose of the gun. Don't be discouraged if you find yourself not getting your gun on target. It's meant to as more of an area suppression weapon than a precision kill weapon. Okay, so it's meant to just put some rounds down range, suppress the target, give the battlefield a little bit of hell, but not necessarily used for precise targeting. Now, the nice thing about it is it doesn't take much for the gun to take something out, whether it be light armor or unarmed. Now, I haven't ever tried this on a tank or anything like that, but we have some BTRs out here, as well as some unarmed infantry trucks. So infantry trucks are over on the right, the last 2 rows, and then the other previous three are all armored vehicles. So let's go ahead and start spinning some rounds off. And by default, when you hold the trigger down, if you hold it down for continuous time, the gun will spin 10 rounds off, or you can burst it from anything obviously in between. So here we go. Oh, and that is the trigger guard. So I just squeezed the trigger, it didn't go. So now I'm hitting T on my keyboard, lifting that trigger guard up. Those are pretty good rounds on target. And we'll come back in here in a minute. We're doing some pretty high speed passes here. And let's try from a bit further out. Oh, we're at an elevation limit, so I have to wait till I'm not banking the aircraft so much. There we go. Oh. Come on, trim. Knock it off. God, the trim is really fighting me this time. See, if I hold the trigger down, I'll only get a maximum of 10 rounds. And so it takes a bit of practice, and I think the hardest part about track IR is that you have to hold your head still. Why is she just fighting me so much? You are not behaving, young lady. But it's very simple to use in this manner. And then if we set a manual range, if we wanted to go back to manual, for example, and let's set it to 800 this time. It's still not hard to use. You're just going to have to compensate. Remember, the goal of the gun is to put it at 800 meters. So if the target is above 800 meters, we're going to have to elevate the crosshairs above the target. If the target is below 800 meters, we're going to have to put our crosshair below the target to compensate for what the gun's trying to do. Because the gun is lofting the rounds. So here we go. Let's see what we get here. So those came short, so we're going to go high. Closer. And hopefully you guys get the gist of how that's working. I still personally like the auto mode the best for the gun. I think it's the most fun. I've been having a great time with it. Still trying to practice with it. And I think that in auto mode is the best way just to practice getting used to getting your crosshairs on target here. Let the computer do the work for you. Why do you keep doing that? You know what I think it is? I think it's the wind gusting. I meant to set no wind and I didn't. We were close on that one. Got time for a couple more shots here. Take a few more pop shots at them. There we go. There's one. That one looked like it should have got him. Let's do one more pass from the left. Bring it around. And that's it. She's out of ammo. So we're going to deselect the gun. We're going to put our safety back on, master on back on. There we go. And we are now back into normal flight here. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed another episode of these tips and tricks for a noob. It's definitely the way that I would prefer to learn. The other thing that I really liked that Cosmo mentioned in his video that I wanted to repeat is that the primary purpose of the gun from the pilot standpoint is in the event that you're flying along, you're approaching an AO, or maybe you're in a hot area, and like let's say someone from one of these buildings starts taking chop shots at you, and rather than trying to report to the CPG, hey, you know, target 1 o'clock low, whatever it may be, you could simply just look over, quickly take control of the gun, and squeeze off a couple rounds to suppress the area and hopefully get you guys out safely. So it's not necessarily meant as an assault method for the pilot as much as it is, you know, a quick reaction utility for the pilot side. But anyway, guys, I really hope you guys enjoyed this little video. I'll keep making these as long as you guys keep watching them and sharing my experiences with the Apache. Until next time, guys, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you soon.